to Tracy Momi Reads. I am back today with another video. I was in, I've been telling y'all about this Facebook group I'm in with a bunch of other readers. And there was a post that someone made where she asked, what type of books do you read as like palate cleansers, basically? So let's say, you've been on a roll reading a bunch of horror books and maybe you're trying to get those images out of your mind. So, what type of book do you go to kind of, re-stimulate your brain? Or if you've been reading a bunch of heavy political things or race-related things and you want something to kind of lighten your heart, like what kind of books would you, turn to? So I thought about that because, as y'all know, I've been going down the rabbit hole with all of these thrillers and suspense books, and they're all revenge fueled. And I stumbled across a genre that I would have never thought like I would be kind of interested in or fascinated by, because on its face, it is the most misogynistic thing ever. But I have been like caught up with this, with these arranged mafia marriages. And I know that sounds crazy. Like I said, if I'm like, either stuck and kind of like not like really feeling the book that I've selected to read, I need something to kind of get me back on track or refocus, like I want to read something that's not too deep, that's not too realistic. That is what I seem like I've been turning to lately. And I think I also mentioned before how I've read books that I would never probably talk about on the channel. But when I saw that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to step out of my box. I'm going to be brave. And I'm going to share one of the better ones that I read, one of the arranged mafia marriages, because not all of them are worthy of even having a discussion about. They're just like, they're ridiculous, but they become a guilty pleasure. The one that I want to talk about today, though, it is called Sparrow by L.J. Shen. L.J. Shen, Sparrow. And there's like a little tagline. It's the thing on here says, "The son of a dead mobster, the heartthrob with still blue eyes. Oh, and he's my new husband." So yeah, so this is one of those arranged marriages. And who even knew that that was a whole genre? I'm telling y'all, if y'all were to Google that, the amount of books that come up, I just kind of stumbled across it on Kindle because they do these recommendations or new releases and things like that. And sometimes they'll say based on other books you've read. And when I got the first recommendation, I was like, I have never read a book like this. I don't know how y'all are, getting to these recommendations because I've never read a book like this. But now I have. I've read several. So Sparrow, unlike some of the more traditional ones that I've read, most of them are kind of like maybe what you're thinking when you think about arranged marriage. It's usually the daughter of a rival family being promised at a young age to, like, maybe it's the first daughter promised to the first son. And this is something that the fathers agreed on, like when they were children. And then like when they turn 18, 21 or whatever, they become of age, then they're expecting that this union takes place. Sometimes it may be not even rivals, but in the same family to kind of strengthen their, stronghold on a particular region. They want these families to join forces by marriage, and then they have children that will become the next heirs and all of that. And as you can guess, I mean, in all of the stories, because you got to have that tension, it's always a situation where the woman doesn't want anything to do with it. She thinks that because a lot of these stories are set current day. They're not like stories set back in the 1900s or, or whatever, or 1800s. They're like present day. So a lot of women are very resistant because, they think it's archaic. They think it's misogynistic. They think it's catering to the patriarchy and all of those things. And they are absolutely right. But in this particular one, in Sparrow, it's a little bit different in that the main character, the male main character, his name is Troy. He's the son of a mobster, but he didn't go into the family business in that that's not what his main business is. However, he does do some freelance enforcing, right? So from some of the connections that he's made, if like, somebody hasn't paid somebody some money, or if somebody, is trying to blackmail somebody, they get Troy and they pay him a large sum of money to go and take care of that person, whether it's torture them, get them to drop the blackmail or whatever. He has a way about him, right? But primarily what Troy is doing in this particular book is he has, you guessed it, a revenge list, because like in the tagline says, the son of a dead mobster, someone killed his father. So, and he was only a teenager when it happened. So he's like, now going back, putting the pieces together, getting names and checking off lists to see how this happened and who all was involved. And if you were just the person that pointed and said where his dad was, you were on his list. You didn't have to be the person that killed him. Anybody that kind of helped to that with the leading up of those events, you're on Troy's shit list. And he's not being very kind. Because I will tell you that not only, as you probably imagine, are there some pretty racy, like sexual scenes or whatever, there's some violent scenes where people are being tortured or killed or whatever. And the author doesn't like go on pages and pages of this stuff. Like when this book opens, they're, I think, at a church, and Troy's in a confessional and he's like confessing his sins. Then it's like a turn where he asks the priest if he has any sins. And then that's like, that's the last spoiler I'll give, but that's like when you see kind of what he's capable of, because the priest has some sins too, and they had to do with helping Troy's father get killed. So anyway, I would say, and this is always the case in the majority of these stories, the male character and the female character is always like an age difference, but not like let's say if the female character, I think in this case, her name is Sparrow, by the way, which is where we get the title from. She's maybe 23 and like Troy may be 29 or almost 30. So like when he was 16, she may have been 8 or 10 or something like that. But, and when his dad died, he made Troy promise that one day he was going to marry her. And of course, at the time he's like, ew, this little girl, like, what are you talking about? But then as he got older and he, that promise was weighing heavy on his mind, and she, became a young woman, and it was like, okay, I guess I better honor my dad's wish, because he felt like that was going to lead him to something, probably figuring out how his dad died or why. And, Sparrow's just living her life. She has 2 roommates. She wants to be a chef. They're in culinary school, college somewhere. And, guys and getting married is the last thing on her mind. But, Troy comes to her, and this is the thing that I think is so crazy. Only in maybe one of the books that I've read did the female character like legitimately like run away. Like, catch me if you can, because I'm not going through with that. But in most of them, they don't want to do it, but they go ahead because they don't want to face either maybe the fallout of what will happen to their family or friends if they don't go through with it. And in this case, Sparrow, her father, he was kind of connected in the mafia, mainly as like a low-level enforcer or, or like a lookout or something. He wasn't really a muscle guy because, he's an alcoholic. And I think like they threatened to hurt her dad or do something to him if she didn't go ahead and go through with this marriage to this man. I mean, she knows Troy because her dad worked for his dad, and they kind of grew up in the same neighborhood. So he was always on the fringes, but he was a much older boy at the time, and she didn't really have anything to do with him. Only once, like, their families went to a wedding, and she remembered through the story about seeing him at that wedding when she was a little girl or whatever. But they never really had any like connection. They never really saw each other. And then bam, randomly, it's like, okay, you got to marry me. And she does. I guess the other part of this mafia arranged marriage trope is always like an enemies to lovers as well, because I mean, think about it. Somebody just comes up and they're like, hey, you got to marry this person. Either a person who you may be familiar with through your family, but you really don't know them. But animosity kicks in instantly because they're trying to force you into something that you really don't want to do. Okay, and so in this particular story, you learn quickly that it's more than meets the eye, right? There's just so many like other things, moving pieces, because you got this marriage that, I mean, technically Troy doesn't want it either, but like he's bound by duty. So he does what he's supposed to do, or what he promised that he would do. But then you also have him doing his revenge thing. You have Sparrow trying to see how she can get out of this or be as like independent of Troy as she possibly can. So there's like somebody is like doing some crooked stuff in the background. These things keep happening. So there's this bit of mystery, intrigue. I mean, you got the mafia, you got these murders, you got steamy, scenes. So it's just a lot of stuff to keep you captivated, quite honestly. The thing that a lot of these type of stories also have in common is that the main male character is always like filthy rich. So I guess it could be worse. You could be forced into marriage with somebody where you got to live in poverty, but these people are always just filthy rich. They have businesses. I mean, a lot of the money is probably dirty from different deals and things that they've done. But in Troy's case, he has a restaurant, which how, convenient, because Sparrow, she wants to be a chef one day. So that was one of the things they kind of like, even though it was a lot of this and a lot of tension in their relationship, or because they didn't really have a relationship, he let her work at the restaurant because that's just something she wanted to do. And, he was like, well, whatever, you don't even have to work. You can do whatever you want to do, and you want to like go to work. So she was telling him, how she wanted to be a chef. So he let her go work in one of his restaurants or what have you. But what was crazy is that she didn't tell her friend. She was acting like she was staying with her dad. And I'm like, girl, at some point you're going to have to tell them that you're not coming back to the apartment, or that you have a husband. And they found out, and they were like trying to help her get away and stuff, which that didn't go well because, he had somebody on her the whole time, like a bodyguard, like this guy that went with her everywhere because, he has enemies. And a lot of times your enemies try to get to the people closest to you. They feel like that's the only way that they could hurt you. Like I said, what I liked about the book is that it had a deeper plot, right? And also there was this period where you saw, like the growth of both characters and how they kind of affected each other. She made him, she was she was innocent in that she wasn't in all of that stuff. Like her dad didn't involve her in like mafia stuff. She was just a regular girl, like with these dreams. She was very bright-eyed and optimistic, and a little bit of that rubbed off on him. And at the same time, she was naive in a lot of ways, and he brought a lot of realism to her life and made her stronger and more confident in herself. At the end of the story, there's like this big reveal that I didn't actually see coming, but it gave more insight as to why Troy's dad made him promise that he would marry her and take care of her. So that came to light. And then also as a result of finding out what happened, Sparrow was devastated because in all these stories, because you have such a short window to try to make things make sense and to bring these enemies together, to actually care about each other, because they come together multiple times, even though they didn't like each other. But there's actually at the end of the story, small spoiler, but they're all like happily ever after, and they kind of tell you that in the blurbs. But he let her go. Like he let her go. There was some money that he put in an account, and he was watching it to see if she ever used it because he told her he wasn't trying to keep her prisoner. And that, because initially he was like, I'm never letting you go and this and that. He was just kind of being an asshole to her, but eventually he did let her go, and she used some of the money. And I don't think they ever officially signed divorce papers, but the papers were drawn up. And she left, and her and her friends, they did a food truck, and she was just, living without him, but she did miss him. And they kind of talked every now and then, and he kind of got out of the business that he was in with the enforcing stuff on the side and stopped trying to get revenge on the one or two people left that was involved in his dad's death. And of course, at the end they do get back together, I should say. But like I said, I appreciated that she was allowed to move apart from him and to really try life on her own and accomplish some things without being forced to live the life that he wanted her to live. Because initially he was very insistent on, this is how you're going to behave, this is how you're going to dress, this is how you're going to act, this is how you're going to talk. And she's like, dude, I didn't want to marry you, so I'll be, damned if I'm about to let you come here and tell me what kind of person I'm supposed to be. So that tension, you could kind of see the writing on the wall where that was going, because even he was like kind of like taken aback, like, nobody talks to me like that. People are afraid of me when I walk in the room, and here you are, just running off at the mouth. What is your deal? So yeah, all in all, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's one of those stories where if you have been either in a slump or you've been reading stuff that has just kind of fried your mind or desensitized you in some way, moving on to something else like a palate cleanser, I think is a good idea. And like I said, I've kind of fallen into this arranged mafia thing in between books sometimes, because the stories are very short. Most of them are short. I mean, some are like full-length novels, but most of them are kind of in the novella realm. So the action starts a little bit quicker. The stories aren't as long, and you can kind of get through them maybe in between even reading another book. And like I said at the top, obviously it's problematic. There's some very problematic things. But I will say that one thing I have noticed with the stories that I've read, at least, is that all of the male characters, they seem to have one, moral point and moral compass. They never force women, other than to marry them, but outside of that, they never force them to do anything else. So it's never any situations like that you'll be reading about, like in this book or some of the other books I think by this author. So there's that. But it's par for the course. It's hard for me to say that there's nothing to say what I disliked, because going in, you know what you're going to get. So if you don't like overly misogynistic things, if you don't like forced marriages, if you don't like, scenes where somebody's taking out revenge, then no, stay far, far, far away from this book, because it's going to give you all of that. But one of my favorite movies of all time is The Godfather and The Godfather 2. Loved Goodfellas, so I gravitate to movies like that. Sure, a therapist would probably tell me there's something wrong with me, or there's a reason for that. But I look at it all as entertainment, as escapism. And I feel like L.J. Shen did a really good job with this particular book, being in that genre, So yeah, like I said, if you like books that have a little bit of mystery, if you're into mafia books, if you're into enemies to lovers type books, then this book will definitely fit the bill. But and if you are somebody that's open to those kind of stories, or you enjoy that kind of stuff, just be forewarned, you may fall down a rabbit hole that you never get out of once you start Googling these stories. But other than that, I feel like, if you are into it, it's something worth your time and worthwhile. So now I would love to know, if you all have ever even heard of, books being considered palate cleansers, and if so, what's your go-to genre to cleanse your palate or cleanse your mind and kind of get you ready for the next book that you're going to read? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching today. Be sure to like this video and go ahead and take a moment, please, and subscribe to my channel and hit that post notification bell so you don't miss out on any of this marvelous content. And for those of you already subscribed to my channel, thank you so very much. I sincerely appreciate it. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.